Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Fatboyz Dynasty Podcast presented by the Fantasy Holics. As always, coming at you, Bo and Brant, wrapping up Week 7, heading into Week 8. We're going to talk about some waiver claims, but first we got to talk about some big injuries that hit over Week 7. We had Breece Hall, who's likely, I think it did come out that he will be missing the rest of the year with a torn ACL. Prayers up. Hope he does heal up and come back. I know that was a big name a lot of people had, late in their drafts, RB3 style. He had slid into the RB2 role on most fantasy teams. And we saw DK Metcalf go down in the first quarter. It looks like his is not season ending, but it does look like he will be missing multiple weeks there in Seattle. The official diagnosis has not come out as we're putting this cast out. And then we had David Njoku had a high ankle sprain, left the game early for the Cleveland Browns. And then Ezekiel Elliott, who I need to go back and double check on, but he went limping off the field and has a questionable tag right now too, something to do with his ankle too, so that's something also to keep an eye on for you Tony Pollard holders. I know you're hoping that maybe it's a week or two missing for Zeke, so we get to see all of Tony. But yeah, we had a lot of big injuries. Big news did just come out, and I know this one's a little bittersweet for you, Bo, because this is a guy you really like. And Matt Ryan is getting benched this week for Sam Ehlinger. So, that's something to keep an eye on as you own any Indianapolis Colts. I think that brings Jonathan Taylor stock up just a little bit more because what do we always say here at the Fatboyz? When you get a young quarterback in, who's he leaning on? Those
typically the running backs.
Yep, especially when you have a running back named Jonathan Taylor. So, let's jump straight into this. I'm going to shoot it over to you, Bo. Go ahead and throw out your first waiver claim, unless you got something else you'd like to add before.
Yeah, well, first of all, definitely had a good week of watching football this week. Unless you're a fan of the Atlanta Falcons like I am, who had to watch the Falcons get absolutely murdered by the Cincinnati Bengals, where Arthur Smith only dialed up 13 passing plays in a game that you lose. That doesn't win many games, and I will say I'm officially waving the white flag on any fantasy relevancy coming out of the Atlanta pass catchers. Kyle Pitts, Omida Zacchaeus, Drake London, it's officially panic and nerves there with those guys. So definitely something to monitor, definitely something to be willing to pivot off of if you've been stuck with one of those guys, because 2 weeks ago I saw 15 passes from Mariota where he looked good, but not enough to substantiate fantasy relevancy. And this week we saw 13 passes in a game where they got absolutely blown out. So definitely not something to be excited about there as a Falcons fan or as an owner of any of the pass catchers in Atlanta. So for me, my first waiver claim this week is a tight end. I know last week I suggested Juwan Johnson, and I think Juwan Johnson did enough that if he's still out there, he should be a guy you look at. But this guy's a rookie tight end, which there's a plethora of them. But in my opinion, the one that's looked the best to this point is Cade Otton there in Tampa Bay. He's owned in roughly 23% of leagues on Sleeper right now. And in the last 4 weeks, he's had over 55% of the snap share, so he's really starting to get involved in the offense. He's starting to get things going. And he's had at least 3 targets in every one of those games. If you go back 3 weeks ago when they played Atlanta, he did find the end zone and had like seven targets for 6 receptions. But this is a guy that, if you are struggling with the tight ends and you're wanting to take a gamble, Cade Otton very well may be a guy that you could have and hold for the rest of the season and potentially play several times over.
Yeah, absolutely. He did look good out there, and Tampa Bay's got to find something to provide a spark in that offense. They look just abysmal this week, and we all know that Tom Brady ain't going to go down without a fight. So I'm going to jump in and throw out another tight end, and I'm probably going to butcher this name, but I'm going to do my best. He is also a rookie with a phenomenal stash. Greg Dulcich there in Denver. He came back from being on the IR. He came back week 6 and had 12 fantasy points. He saw 71% of the snaps with 3 targets. And then this past week, he only saw 59% of the snaps, but he did have 9 targets, and he had 6 receptions. He had 11 fantasy points in half-point PPR. This is a guy that if you're struggling with tight ends, or even if you have an older tight end in dynasty leagues, this is a guy that I'm going to go out, take a peek at, try to pick him up off waivers. He's only owned in 14% of leagues. And Denver's kind of in the same boat. They really need to find something to spark up that offense. And this guy's seeing 9 targets with a young QB. We know Russ is banged up. We don't know how long he's actually going to be missing time. This is a guy that I wouldn't mind picking up, putting at the bottom of my bench, just see what it looks like going forward. And like I said, he's a rookie. Stash him on your taxi. He could be the future tight end there in Denver. Once again, like I said, he's only owned in 14% of the leagues. He's not my top waiver claim this week, but he's definitely a guy that I'd be looking at.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. So this next one I'm going to bring up, Brant, is a little different because doesn't necessarily have to be a waiver claim this week with this team being on a bye. But Jerick McKinnon is a guy that I know I've said this name several times over on this cast. He's been the most consistent running back in Kansas City. He's the guy that's out there on the 2-minute drill, 3rd and long situations. He's definitely earned Patrick Mahomes' trust. Especially the last 3 weeks, you've seen him get over 3 targets. I don't know if you watched that Kansas City game this week, but they had like a third and 20 that they threw a little screen pass to Jerick McKinnon. He ended up picking like 27, 28 yards up on that, which ended up leading to a Kansas City touchdown. I know everybody was over the moon infatuated with the news coming out about Isaiah Pacheco being the starter this week, getting the first team reps in practice over CEH. Really what this tells me is that they don't have confidence in any of their running backs except for McKinnon, who's never done anything or who has never been transplanted from that 2-minute offense. So definitely something I'm keeping my eye on and monitoring. And right now he's only rostered in 16% of leagues. So if you're in a deep league, or maybe you are that guy that had CEH and you were a little down on the news of Isaiah Pacheco, whatever, this may be a pivot for you. And Jerick McKinnon is a guy that you can go pick up. Again, doesn't have to be this week because of the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs are on bye week. But this is, again, a Jerick McKinnon in a half-point PPR who's averaged 6 points the last 3 weeks. So definitely a guy to keep your eye on, whether it be you pick him up and stash him this week or grab him next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's worth noting that this past week, even though Isaiah Pacheco was the starter, McKinnon outsnapped all 3 backs, seeing 44% of the snaps. And, Pacheco, he saw 30%. He was second in there. But, yeah, McKinnon has outsnapped and outplayed for the most part, minus the touchdowns for CEH. McKinnon's outplayed most of those backs in that backfield. So, yes, he's definitely a stash guy. So my next one is actually a stash guy too, with injuries coming out. This guy is he's sitting there behind a back in Tampa Bay. He's owned in 43% of the league is Rachaad White, the running back. He's sitting behind Fournette, who we do know he does miss time, but White's came out and he's looked explosive with the touches that he does get. He saw 43% of the snaps this week. Now he didn't do a whole lot to really, be on a whole lot of people's watch list this week. But like I said, his snap share has been going up. He did see the highest he's seen all year. And like I said, they're going to have to do something in that offense to get some explosion, get some points up. And it would not surprise me at all to see them lean on a young running back in White to catch some passes out of the backfield and get some first downs and actually move the ball down the field, because Tampa Bay did not look like themselves this week or even last week. And they play early this week on Thursday night, I believe it is. I believe they play the Ravens on Thursday night. But this is a guy that I'd be looking to go ahead and grab, especially if I'm a Fournette owner. This is a guy that I'm looking to hold on to because if Fournette misses time, this is really the only other running back sitting there in the backfield waiting to see touches.
Yeah, Rachaad White's definitely one of those guys that I think he's ultimately the future in Tampa Bay too. So definitely worth a roster spot if you have him. I think, especially with the way Tampa's looked the last couple of weeks, there's a chance you might see some of these younger guys get a chance to spark up some of the offense anyway. So definitely worth a pickup in my mind. I like Rachaad White quite a bit. I'm going to go to the wide receiver position, dip my toe in that for just a second, then I'm going to come back to the running backs. But the wide receiver that I want to talk about this week is Darius Slayton. Right now, he's rostered in like 6% of leagues on Sleeper, which is, first of all, it's criminal. But the last 4 weeks, this guy's seen over 54% of the snaps. That Giants pass-catching core is just absolutely depleted right now with, Kadarius Toney out, Kenny Galladay out, Sterling Shepard on the IR. Wan'Dale Robinson's looked good, but he got banged up and had to leave the game early again last week. And in his absence this week, Darius Slayton saw 6 targets, and he caught, I believe 4 of them, and 1 was for a touchdown. So in week 5, he also saw 7 targets. So this is a guy that Daniel Jones isn't scared to throw the ball to. This is a guy that, as bye weeks are coming and going, whatever, this is a guy you could pick up and play and expect him to see it be peppered with targets and potentially even maybe get you 10-plus points on the week and save your week versus playing like somebody like, a Marquez Valdez-Scantling or somebody like that who you got to get, 3 receptions for 100 yards for him to be relevant. So this is just something to keep your eye on. Darius Slayton is a guy that I think moving forward through the course of the season, especially if Wan'Dale Robinson misses this week, could be a big, huge name to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. One of us Fat Boys had to four-start him in our deep league this week, and he hung 12 points for me, so I'm happy I picked him up a little earlier. And I want to quote something with that Giants receiving core that I saw this week that made me laugh and is going to make you laugh. I was watching the Who's In, Who's Out there on ESPN, and they noted that Kenny Galladay was out, and they literally said, who even misses Kenny Galladay? So I missed him a little bit. I had to drop him for the first time after being, one of my startup draft picks. But Kenny Galladay is he's no longer relevant there.
You're like a dog that poops on the house, but instead of me having to take the dog over and rub his nose in it, you go rub your own nose in it. I love it.
Yeah, I have to. I got to beat myself up before other people get to.
That's fair.
The number one waiver claim this week, I think, for anybody, and he is owned in 60% of the in leagues, but you do need to go out and just see if people got fed up with him and dropped him in your shorter leagues. Michael Carter. Breece Hall is missing the rest of the year with the torn ACL. You got to go pick up Michael Carter if he's in your league. He's got to be your number one claim. He's entering into, he plays 40% of the snaps with Breece Hall there, and now he's going into the RB1 and going to see the vast majority of snaps there for the Jets. And he's going to almost enter RB2 conversation for the rest of the year for fantasy relevancy. So I really think you got to go out and just peek at your waivers. If Michael Carter's there, there's a lot of names that I'd be willing to drop for him. This is a guy that is a plug-and-play start and might be the only real plug-and-play start to pull off of waivers this week, unless you, like you said, you're in a deeper league. Darius Slayton's a guy that you can plug and play. The rest are kind of depleted now, and we're just waiting to see. But, yeah, I think Michael Carter's a good plug-and-play guy if he happens to be out there. Like I said, it's only 60% of the league, so there's a good chance that he might still be out there in some of those shallow leagues.
Yeah, I definitely think Michael Carter is one of those guys that not only does he have plug-and-play value, but if you're able to pick him up in front of the Breece Hall owner or, somebody else that went like 0 running backs or whatever, he also has immense trade value rest of season 2 for a waiver claim. So that's definitely one that I like. I wouldn't say, though, that he's the only plug-and-play pickup, because there are 2 other running backs out there based on what happened at the end of last week. If these guys weren't picked up after the news of the trade came through, but that's the Carolina running backs. And right now the numbers on Sleeper say these guys weren't picked up that quickly. You've got Donta Foreman at 60% owned, similar to Michael Carter. 54% of the snaps this week, got 15 carries for 118 yards, another 2 targets, 2 receptions, 27 yards. So very, very serviceable numbers there out of Donta Foreman. And then Chua Hubbard, who was one of my favorite rookie running backs coming out last year, got on the field for 46% of the snaps. He had 9 carries, 63 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 targets, 2 receptions, and 10 yards. And that was against a very good run defense in Tampa Bay. They've got the Falcons coming up. They've got some other games. These are running backs that I think you could pick up and play multiple weeks throughout the season. And if you're in a league where Donta Foreman's picked up, then go pick up Chuba Hubbard. If you're in a league where neither one of them have been picked up, go pick them both up. It'd be like owning the Rams backfield potentially, or Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison without either one of Foreman or Hubbard being as good as Dalvin Cook. But these are guys that you can pick up and play. It's very similar to Michael Carter. Again, they're going to have some trade value as the season progresses. So definitely some names that are worth an addition in your leagues.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about a duo of running backs to pick up. I'm going to talk about a duo of wide receivers to keep your eye on. They're both owned in 0% of leagues out there, according to Sleeper, and that's Marquise Goodwin and D. Eskridge there in Seattle. With DK missing some time, one of these guys is going to have to step in. And in my mind, I think it's going to be Goodwin is going to be the number one there to step in. It still should be Lockett's going to be the number one. But Goodwin had a very good game this week. He saw 54% of snaps. He caught 4 receptions on 5 targets and 2 touchdowns. He's seen over 40% of the snaps in every game that he's played this year. The only game he did not play in was week 5. But like I said, he's already seeing over 40% of the snaps, so I assume his snap share is going to go up if DK is to miss time. And like I said, rumors swirling around is that DK is going to miss some time. And then I put out D. Eskridge because this is another speedy guy that we drafted, I believe, in the 2nd round last year out of Western Michigan. He's been banged up a little bit in his career. He hasn't seen a whole lot of snaps, but he did see 42% of the snaps after DK went down. He had 2 rushes for I'm sorry, that was his kick return. He only had one target. He did not get involved in the rushing game after dropping that first one, and it was a fumble that we lost. So, but D. Eskridge is a guy that they do try to get involved with some trickery. He's got plenty of speed. He's a guy that if Goodwin somehow gets picked up ahead of you, D. Eskridge is another guy that could be a wide receiver of value there in Seattle, especially if Geno keeps playing at high rate of pace that he's playing. Unfortunately, Finley, you may be right on this one. Geno is going to get an MVP vote before Russell Wilson ever does. Geno's looked really, really good, and Seattle goes in and plays, some games that they're going to have to stay involved in coming up. They have the Giants, Arizona, Tampa Bay. They might not have to stay involved in, and so Seattle's got a late bye in Week 11, so you may see DK out till Week 11, which one of these guys is going to have to step into that role if if Geno is going to keep playing at his pace that he's playing at. And also, another thing I want to note is after DK went down, Seattle ran a whole lot of 3 tight end sets. I'm assuming Noah Fant's probably not available in most leagues, but Will Dissly's a guy that could see some of the volume that DK normally sees, especially being out there on the field. 4-3 tight end sets. Dissly's had a pretty decent year. He finds the end zone. Geno does look for his tight end, so all 3 of those guys could have some value. Most of those guys I'm grabbing off waivers late as one of my bottom claims with those 3, and I'm going to see how it plays out during this next week.
So which of those tight ends do you think's the guy? Because Noah Fant, according to Sleeper right now, is only rostered in 20% of leagues, and you've got Will Dissly rostered in 9%. So with those numbers being what they are, which one do you prefer?
I would honestly prefer Dissly. He knows the offense a little bit better than Fant. He's been there for a few years, and it seems that he looks for Dissly a little bit more. Fant's tight end 21 in PPR leagues, and Dissly's tight end 15. So Dissly's honestly the one I'd prefer to own. He did see 4 targets and received 4 catches this week. He did not find the end zone, unfortunately. And Noah Fant saw 3 targets and only had 1 catch. So honestly, Dissly in my mind, I think, is the one to own. I do not think he is the most talented out of our tight ends. I think that goes to Noah Fant, but I think Will Dissly is the most trusted of our tight ends right now.
Okay, fair enough. So there you go. You've got some names at almost every position, minus the old quarterback position. But hopefully those names help out a little bit. Again, be in mind this week that the Los Angeles Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs are both on bye. So you're missing a lot of big names there. So Be prepared to go out and scour the waivers. If you're a Patrick Mahomes or a Justin Herbert owner and you're looking for a quarterback, don't be afraid. There's plenty of names out there, I'm sure. So go out there, take a gander and see what you can find. Some big names out this week with those two teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And then don't forget it. Catch up with us on Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. 9 a.m. Central Time for your starts and sits. If you still have quarterback questions leading into the week, we're more than happy to help you out there on who to plug and play late. We also talked about some player props that we liked this week, and I think we fared pretty decently on the ones we did put out. So, yeah, the show's growing. We're trying new things. Let us know if you guys want to hear anything else from us. And we're going to keep trying to put out 2 episodes a week. We'll be dropping another episode hopefully later this week talking about some projections that we like this week with some players and talk about maybe some more players to fill in on that bye week as we get deeper into our research going into week 8. And then, as always, we'll bring up the college running backs again this week. And as always, stay hungry.
And stay fat, my friend.